Muneshine. He's a Polaris Prize winner and Juno-nominated producer, and he's also an MC, a DJ, and he's based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And anyways, in the past, he's done work with the likes of Pete Rock, Sean Price, Tom Waits, and many of, just Canada's independent hip-hop artists, pretty much everyone. Everyone from Ghetto Socks to fucking Mocha Only, Decisive, you name it, pretty much everywhere. He just recently released his latest project called In Transit, and I was able to get him on the phone basically and find out more about this project. So let's take a listen to that interview. I've always known you to be a producer and an MC, and I'm assuming you've been releasing music for over 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I've started to notice the DJ title around your name. Just over a few months ago was the first time I noticed it. What can you tell me about this new endeavor?
To be honest, DJing is probably my oldest endeavor of all. It's kind of how I started in music. Before I ever wrote songs or made beats or anything like that, I was DJing. Like when I was just getting out of high school, this probably dates me a little bit, but when I was getting out of high school, I used to subscribe to the Source magazine all the time back in the day when it was actually a pretty good resource for info and shit like that. And they always had the ads in the back for these random DJ kits, like these starter kits. So when I was like 18 years old, I saved up a bunch of money. I was working at Subway at the time, and I saved up a bunch of money and bought this DJ starter kit. And it came with these two like bullshit belt drive Gemini turntables, a hideous American DJ mixer, some terrible needles, and like 2 garbage records. So that's like really, DJing was my start in hip hop in the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And for the DJs out there, do you prefer Tractor or Serato?
I've never actually used Tractor. I mean, I have a lot of friends who use it, but I'm a Serato guy, just because that's kind of what I learned when I made the transition from vinyl DJing to software DJing, and that's kind of the tool I had. So I haven't felt limited by it yet, so that's kind of what I'm still rocking with.
And I'm assuming you've stepped up from the Gemini belt drives?
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually have any turntables right now, which is kind of strange. I'm in the process of looking for a new one. I had sold my 1200s a couple of years ago.
Ooh.
When I was fully like out of DJing. So I was like, I don't need these fucking tables. So
yeah,
I got rid of them. But definitely I like the Tech 1200s, and I like the Rain T TTM 5.7 mixers. The one I'm using now with Serato.
Yeah, that's some top-notch gear right there. Now let's talk about your production for a minute. I've always your overall sound has always struck me as very clean and crisp. From an audio engineer's point of view, what do you attribute this particular sound to?
I think it's really it's just what I like. Like, there's always going to be these producers that make real gritty, like kind of whatever 8-bit or 12-bit sample-based hip-hop. And I mean, I always loved that as a fan, but when it comes to making it, I've always just kind of gravitated towards the cleaner kind of sound. I've always tried to kind of bridge the gap between the two, because I've always been a sample-based producer. I mean, until recently. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of sample-based stuff, but then what was fun for me was taking that kind of old quote-unquote sound and mixing it with like a clean new approach. Sort of like, I mean, I've always looked up to guys who make clean stuff, like the Jay Dillas and the Timbalands and Dr. Dre's and High Techs. Like those were always some of my bigger influences. DJ Spinna, a lot of those guys who make that kind of stuff that's somewhere in the middle. So it just kind of is what I like. So that's naturally the path I went down.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually went to school for audio engineering, right?
Yeah, I did, in London.
And in London, at Fanshawe College?
No, I went to OIR, which is another school there for audio engineering.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that, because I go to Fanshawe College right now for music industry arts. But what was I going to say? Basically, so how has that helped you at all? Do you see it as something that has continued to I don't know, make its way into your music?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it gave me kind of a different approach to what I was doing after I finished kind of just making a beat.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went to school back in like 2003 is when I was in London. So, I mean, at that time, even just the sort of way that the curriculum worked at the school, things were just kind of turning over into the digital world. So there wasn't really a big focus on that. I mean, there was a lot of content based on Pro Tools and Logic and things like that, but there wasn't a lot to do with actual production using digital, like using software and things like that to make beats and to mix. So, I mean, it's definitely played a major role in it. I think it's more of a subconscious thing than a conscious thing. It's like I learned all these techniques and I learned this theory and kind of how music works and how elements of a song fit together. That stuff kind of got drilled into my brain while I was in school. And then when I left, I feel like it's just rattling around in there.
Yeah.
And then when I sit down to work on something, that stuff comes to the forefront and it applies as I'm working. I definitely don't like to consider myself an audio engineer, really, because like I feel like that would discredit those who really do put the time in on that. So, I mean, I do mix my own music. I often outsource it for mastering, but I definitely think that it's helped kind of train my ear in a way as to like what I'm listening for when I'm working on stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to talk about your projects. Your last solo album that you released was actually, I think in 2012, it was an album called There Is Only Today. Now, the title and the project, I felt, were inspired by this very sudden health scare that you experienced. Can you tell us about that, the health scare itself?
Yeah, I mean, that didn't really necessarily inspire the overall vision for the album. It definitely inspired 1629, which is one of the songs on the album. But what happened is I actually just got a regular case of mono.
Okay.
And what ended up happening was, in really rare cases, what's going to happen is sometimes certain organs will enlarge within your body caused by this mono. For most people, they get like a sore throat and that's it. And they're like tired for 3 or 4 days and then they get better, or they have like kind of basic flu symptoms. What happened to me is my heart actually enlarged when I got mono.
Okay.
So when it enlarged, that's actually what caused the heart attack. So I had like a minor heart attack. It wasn't anything like earth shattering. I woke up the morning it happened. I felt like all fucked up. I was all like kind of dizzy and disoriented. But I still like got dressed and got on the streetcar and went to the hospital. I wasn't like, I need to call an ambulance, I'm dying. But it was a crazy situation for me because when I got to the hospital, obviously the first questions they ask is like, do you use hard drugs? Are you like this and that? Which I'm not. I hadn't done any of that. So
yeah.
That wasn't the cause, but it was still a mystery to the doctors. They ended up taking tests for like 3 or 4 days. I was like just connected to like heart monitors and all this shit, and they had no idea what was happening. And then finally, after about 4 days, they decided to do some of the kind of preliminary tests, which mono is, and then that's when they found out that that's what caused it. So I mean, it was definitely a kind of scary situation because it was unknown what was happening and what caused it.
Yeah.
So that definitely kind of put a new sort of light on life and gave me a new perspective as to like how fragile things actually are.
And you were what, like in your late 20s at the time, right?
Yeah, I was 29.
That's what makes it even more, I don't know, just scary, I guess. Now,
Totally.
Obviously, so that and I'm sure a lot of other things have kind of changed your perspective on life, just growing up and stuff. What can you tell us about the theme of this new album, In Transit?
It's sort of a two-sided concept. On one hand, it's basically kind of my voice going through this transition just in life and with music and whatever. I'm just in a bit of a transitional period where I'm moving from something I've always done into like a new environment of things I've never really done, but things I really love and I'm excited about. So there's that side of it. And then the other side is I literally wrote all the lyrics while in transit. So while like riding the streetcar, on airplanes, on buses, walking around. I didn't do any writing, just like kind of sitting at home or sitting in a studio. I did it all while literally in transit because I felt like that was a cool way to kind of tie the two ideas together. But that's the main idea of the album.
That's awesome, man. That's one of those titles for sure that, I don't know, you see a lot of albums and you just see the title and it's like, whatever. It doesn't really mean much. But that one really caught my attention. It's very concise and, it gives you a lot of imagery. And And okay, so now I gotta ask you, some of the guests on this album include artists such as Fresh Daily, Mocha Only, Atom Bomb, Ghetto Socks, and Decisive. Now, I gotta ask about Decisive. He's an artist from Toronto as well, who you've worked with for many, many years, and you've actually, you won a Polaris Prize together for the song called "Nobody with a Notepad." And I've always been curious. How did your relationship start? How did you guys meet?
Oh, I met Decisive like a long time ago. I met him in, I think, 2001, actually, when I was still living in Saskatoon. And he was on tour with DJ Sirius and Nish Rocks, and they were coming through Saskatoon in the summer, I believe, of 2001. And I'd never met him. I'd never been to Toronto. I'd never, like, really experienced any other Canadian hip-hop outside of the scene in Saskatoon. So obviously at that time I was just like really hungry to go to shows. So I was checking out every show that came through town, trying to like give beat CDs, even though my beats were like fucking garbage in 2001.
Yeah.
I was trying to give beat CDs to every rapper I could. So, I mean, these guys came out and it was funny because they were playing a university show, but it was in summer. So campus was like a ghost town in Saskatoon. So they came through and it was like me and maybe 10 other people at this show. It was like a total bust, but what came out of it is I actually ended up meeting Derek, and it was cool because we met, and this is like before like MySpace, before Facebook, obviously. This is quite a while ago, so I mean, we didn't like exchange phone numbers or anything like that. We just met. I like came to his show, and then I told him that the next night I had a show in Saskatoon as well, so I was performing with some other local guys. Opening for this guy AWOL1, who's an MC from the West Coast, who was also up in Saskatoon that weekend. So his show was like a total bust, but the next night they had off in Saskatoon before they had to continue on with the tour. So he just said, fuck it, I'm going to go check out this guy's show. So he came out to the party, and it was like rammed. It was a crazy, like in this weird industrial space, we just like packed it out. So he came out, and it obviously gave him like a really cool impression of like what was going on in Saskatoon. Yeah. So fast forward to like 2007, I finished, I'd gone to London, went to school, then I moved to Toronto directly after that. And when I got here, I started reaching out to people that I liked their music in the city. And he was one of them. And this was in kind of the MySpace era. So I just hit him up on MySpace, like, hey man, we met back in Saskatoon years ago. And he remembered, and he like hit me back right away. And we just like went and got breakfast at Sunset Grill, and the rest is history, as they say.
As they say. Awesome, man. Yeah. So what else can you tell us about, I mean, any final words for the listeners?
I mean, I'm just hoping that everybody's going to check out the album. I'm really, like, we've put a ton of work into it. I'm working with, like, a really exciting team right now of, like, hungry people that are just really trying to push it as far as they can. So I'm just hoping everybody's going to check it out. It's available on iTunes worldwide through Tommy Boy Records in the U.S. and Europe and everywhere but Canada. Yeah, so they've put it out. They're on board. And then it's with Scissor Records, which is a new record label that's just started up. This is actually their first release. So that's pretty cool. And I'd like to direct people, if they want to hear more music, to check out my SoundCloud, which is soundcloud.com/Muneshine. Because it's not just album content. I'm always putting up new remixes or new productions or other people's remixes of my tracks. There's like a lot of content cycling through there. And just to check out, I finally am a grown-up and have my own website. So even just Muneshine.com is popping off right now. So I just hope people will check it out.
Yeah, and that's for those, it's Muneshine, M-U-N-E Shine. Yeah, and I gotta say, man, this album sounds better than ever. I mean, it's really crisp, clean, like I said, and your voice is completely, I don't know, just it's just developed a lot. And personally, I'm a big fan of it, and especially the title track. Really, really good stuff, man. Thanks, man. I'm really excited about it too, and we're actually trying to plan a video for that track as well. So hopefully that's going to come through, and we're going to be putting that out later in summer. Sounds good, man. Well, thanks for doing the interview. Of course. Thanks for having me, man. So bad if you won't come back home. So bad if you're out there on your own. So bad if you won't come back home. So bad if you're out there on your own. Do you feel what I feel? I'm falling. Do you feel what I feel? I'm falling. So bad if you're ready, don't come back home. Do you feel what I feel? I'm falling. Tell them what you heard. I can be your best friend. Home is Toronto, you can find me in the West End. I don't really know if this is what I'm destined for, but I'll roll
that I rest in. Tell them what you heard. I could be your best friend. Home is Toronto, you can find me in the West End. I don't really know if this is what I'm destined for, but I'll roar till it's peace that I rest in. Transit. Hazel eyes hide from the sun. Eyelids weigh about a ton. A token's in the slot and I'm seated. I'm not one to speak with. Let go, I've only got ears from my headphones. And plans when I get there. In the mean in between time I can rest here. These are my best years. That's how I see it at least. I might be being naive, but yes dear, I fall deeper into space. Anti-gravity, a little shut-eye just might advance my sanity. I'm surrounded by closed minds and vanity. I'd leave it for a B&B book and a canopy. Can it be all so simple? Answer me at home in the crowd. I'm alone with tenacity. I put my woes to the back of me. Follow the wheels, planes, trains, and automobiles. Tell them what you heard. I could be your best friend. Home is Toronto, you can find me in the West End. I don't really know if this is what I'm destined for, but I'll roar till it's peace that I rest in. Tell them what you heard. I could be your best friend. Home is Toronto, you can find me in the West End. I don't really know if this is what I'm destined for, but I'll roar till it's peace that I rest in.
I've been all around the world, everywhere I've been, looking for someone just like him. All around the world, no matter what I see, looking for something like a dream. Everywhere I go, I see the sun coming up on me like a gun. Everywhere I go, no matter what I do, everywhere I turn, I think of you.
Solitary and anonymous, that's peace. Metro and metropolis, ego in the backseat, cued to the cubicles. Rodents in the track meet, I wrote it when I wrote it. Coping with the stampede, sipping coffee out the canteen. Caffeine got me on my grind like a damn fiend. Thinking of the days when I heard birds singing and no cars in Dalmany. I've traveled so far, so far. I wrote bars at 30,000, some underground. In Amsterdam, in the boat cruising some canal. On foot in the park, walking city streets. Been around the world, writing scripts to beats. A globe trotter with the pen and the pad. I stay scribbling songs so I don't live in the lab. I'm in transit. I see the road falling back of me. Follow the wheels, planes, trains, and automobiles. Tell them what you heard. I could be your best friend. Home is Toronto, you can find me in the West End. I don't really know if this is what I'm destined for, but I'll roar till it's peace that I rest in. Tell them what you heard. I could be your best friend. Home is Toronto, you can find me in the West End. I don't really know if this is what I'm destined for, but I'll roar till it's peace that I rest in. Transit.
You are currently listening to Gettin Up on Sunday. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/gettinup.com. That's Gettin Up, DOTCOM.
Rock, rock on. Rock, rock on. Rock, rock on. Rock, rock on. Rock on.
Hey yo, let's begin with the initials. Right now, let's make it official. Granted in the rear view, not one for titles, but me and you. That's vital to my survival. I will do my darndest to harness the two of us to us forever and beyond. Fate introduced us, faded and refused us till we met again. Now together and it's on till the break of dawn. Two palm prints in the concrete. Now it's eggs Benny for brunch with duck confit. Complete like Tom and Renee, just as you are, like Colin would say. Bridge, you're the prettiest pity. It took this big hitty, get a minute just to write this song. But hey, a pleasure, the best ever, the time we've had. Let's make the most of this time we have. This one's for you, this one's for me, this one's for us too, maybe one day three. It was love at first sight when I met ya. Yep, you betcha, never guessed we would one day be on a blanket under stars.
Rock, rock on.
Shooting hoops in the park.
Rock, rock on.
You're from Venus, I'm from Mars.
Rock, rock on.
But I knew from the start we would rock, rock on.
Rock
Yeah.
on.
Hey yo, there's been ups and downs, but from the jump I've been upside down. That's heels over head top, took you back to meet my mom. That's right, we roll tight like Cheech and Chong. Two peas in the pod, let's tally. You plus me is like Harry met Sally. You plus me is like a beach house in Maui. Glad I didn't geek out but reached out, cause now we proudly spousey. Two of us traveling but nice too, and I don't even mean taking cabs to the drive-thru. I learned more beside you than in high school, but I'll admit it's cause I tried to. Hi This here's a rap song written for a baby, a beautiful and intelligent lady, the one for which I'm crazy. Thanks for the time we've had, let's make the most of this time we have. This one's for you, this one's for me, this one's for us too, maybe one day three. It was love at first sight when I met ya, yep, you betcha. Never guessed we would one day be making plans this large.
Rock on.
We would travel this far.
Rock on.
You're from Venus, I'm from Mars.
Rock on.
But I knew from the start we would rock on.
Rock on. Rock on. Rock on. Rock on. Rock on. Rock on.